And we talked about how some of our own congregation members, consider themselves both Christian and Buddhist. And how in our congregation we have several mixed couples of Jewish and Christian and Muslim and Christian. And to not to discount those experiences, but to know that they are part of this bi-spirituality that we are experiencing in this radically inclusive way. And I want to tell you from my own experience, and I told you then, 7 years have really changed me in my life in Los Angeles, not only around myself personally, but around my spirituality. And how wonderful it has been for me that but acknowledging those other practices have not taken me away from Jesus. They have led me closer to Jesus and have led me to a real deepening of my own experience of what it means to know God and to experience God. And so I value those experiences in my own life. And we're not fundamentalists here, in case nobody knew, but that we really do open our doors just a little bit wider every day of our lives in this congregation. And then last week we talked about heterosexuality. Again, something that we seldomly talk about. And I remember talking specifically to the LGBT peoples within our congregation, that many of us have built up a wall, a barrier between our lives and the lives of our heterosexual friends within our congregation. And truly that we are called to build a bridge of love, one with each other, and to build that bridge, not expecting that the bridge will be built back, but to build the bridge because we know it's the right thing to do. And that's a real lesson for us in many, many different circumstances of building that bridge, just to build it, because it is true, it is needed in our world. I want to tell you, last Sunday at 11 o'clock service, I was moved beyond anything as Matt shared with us about his own life, and Matt's with us this morning with your family as always, but to share that with us, Matt, about your experience of your own homophobia for many, many years. And I want to tell you, Matt, what was so wonderful for me, and it's one of the things we can always tell when we're a queer church, is that when you stood up right at this pulpit and you asked for forgiveness of the damage that you believe you've done to other people's lives. And it was just fascinating for me, and it was spontaneous. There were maybe 2 or 3 at the 11 o'clock service that just spontaneously said, "Done." And I knew we were still in MCC at that point. But it was a wonderful, wonderful moment to not only to hear that, but it seemed like it was not a big deal. Yes. Done. Forgiven. What a wonderful, wonderful church that we are able to do that. And today we come to conclude this sermon series about talking about transgender and trans-spirituality. And to close this out, to remind us that we are all on a journey to freedom and to liberty. And that we're all being transformed in the twinkling of an eye. I think that's what was happening for Paul, and I think that's what's happening for us. And to know that if God is for us, who can be against us? Who can stand against us? We had a great Bible study again on Wednesday as we gathered in the fellowship hall, and many of our transgendered folk came to share with us their own personal stories. I tell you what I really, really enjoyed about Wednesday, and I know it's called Bible study, and we didn't actually look at the Bible necessarily on Wednesday. But what was so wonderful and liberating on Wednesday was to hear the stories of maybe 5 or 6 of our trans community within our own congregation, and to hear their own personal testimonies about their own transitions and their own journey, and about the impact that this congregation has had upon their own spirituality and upon their own lives. That was so freeing and so liberating. And I was taught something, and it's certainly something I was taught here in the United States. But there was whenever you are listening to someone's story, that inwardly you should be clicking your fingers when you resonate with something that is happening in somebody else's life. I don't remember this happening in Great Britain, but I certainly remember it happening here in many, many different times in many different situations. And I want to tell you, as I listen to the stories of our trans folk and their journey of coming out and their journey of faith, I couldn't stop, but I was like inwardly clicking all the way through those stories of the commonality of their coming out and my coming out experience. The stories of oppression, the stories of knowing that there was no way you could do anything but come out, that there was something within them and me that no matter how much we tried to hide, no matter how much we tried to put it on the back burner, no matter how much we tried, every moment of the day there was this waking to, this is who I am. This is who I am. And truly to know that if that is who we are, it is a sin against God, I believe, not to fully transform into the persons that God has made us to be. And the excitement that I felt in my own spirit, in my own journey of hearing of those stories. Now, not the excitement of the hearing of the damage that has been done, of the frustration, of the hurt, but the excitement of knowing that there was a safe space for all of us to transition, to transform, and to change our lives into becoming the full human beings that God has invited us to be. And it's so exciting for me to watch our trans sisters and brothers find safe space here in this congregation. To find safe space and this whole experience of being transformed was something that I was able to experience in my own way, as I've watched also our trans folk within our own congregation experience that freedom and that liberty. You know, we talk about ever widening those doors of welcome. And how exciting it is for me and for you to see the diversity of God's people continue to change and continue to grow and to continue to experience of our vision of what God looks like. Yes. You know, I truly believe that God is the most androgynous being that we could ever hope for. And that God is both male and female, and yet God is neither of those things. Isn't that a complex theology to try to unpack? Yeah. But that God is truly a representation of each and every one of us. And to know that our trans folk within our congregation, I want to tell you that I think the trans folk bring something to us that we as human beings are not able to fully experience. I think that our trans folk give to us a view of God that many of us are limited in seeing because we have a fixed gender identity that has been given to us and has been identified within us just purely based on what people see. It's been so exciting for me to work and to view and to see our trans folk begin to emerge within our congregation, because I believe that they get to see a view of God that I don't get to see. And what's so exciting about when we share our stories and share our personal testimonies is that I get to begin to see that glimpse of who God is, beyond what I've been able to see, beyond what I've been able to experience, and begin to see God even bigger. And I tell you, I think God is pretty big. But to begin to see God even bigger than what I'd seen God all of these 43 years of my life, I've been able to witness because our trans folk sit amongst us and share with us.